Once upon a time there was a kingdom that was entirely forest. Thick, old, strong trees that could not be cut down. They were too strong. And the forest had stones across its floor that could not be plucked out, for they were too strong. And the people in this kingdom had to build houses out of thin twigs plastered over with leaves, and they were light, and they were airy, and they were breezy, and whenever a strong wind came, they would have to repair their houses by attaching new leaves. Now, the reason that these trees could not be cut down is because fairies lived in them. And the fairies used their magic to make the trees strong so that their homes could never be cut down and taken away. And fairies lived under the stones in the forest and slept on patches of moss by their sides. And so they protected the stones and with their magic kept them rooted to the earth so their homes could not be overturned. And this kingdom lived very well for many, many years. Well, there was another kingdom not too far off that was made entirely of grasslands, and the grasslands at least twice a year would get completely dry, and then fires would burn and sweep across the grasslands, burning all the old grass. And the people in this kingdom had learned to pluck stones out of the earth, for they had no fairies there, for there were no trees, and they built their houses out of stone, so that it resisted the fire, so no one ever lost their home in this kingdom when the fires burned across, because the houses were all made of stone. And they lived very happily for very, very many years, until one year, when a man from the burning grasslands made his way curiously to the edge of the forest kingdom, and he went into the forest kingdom, and he met the people there, and they were greatly amazed to meet someone who didn't live in the forest, and they showed him all of their kingdom. And he was so amazed to see that these people lived in houses made of sticks and leaves. And he said, well, what do you do when the fire comes? And they said, fire? We don't have fires here. And he said, well, how do you not have fires? Don't your houses, the leaves, don't they dry out? And they said, oh, no, no, no. No, our houses are always moist and protected by the dew. And they took him into the middle of the forest where there was a great old tree, the biggest and oldest tree of all, where the most fairies lived. And this tree dripped off of its leaves magic dew. And they said, the dew is always dripping off the leaves all over the forest, and this keeps the leaves of our houses green and fresh, and we do not fear fire here. And the man, he was just stunned and amazed, and he explained how his home was burned at least once or twice a year when the grass all burned. It was all dried out, and the fires would sweep across the grasslands and burn everything there except the stone houses. And he said, getting an idea, do you think that maybe I could bring some of this dew that you have back to my kingdom, and we could try it on our houses and our grass and see if it protects us? And the people in the forest thought that was a good idea, so they went and they got buckets, and they set them underneath the great big tree, and they caught the dew dripping off the leaves of the tree in the buckets, and then they collected it all and they gave it to the man from the grasslands in one great big container, and they sent him on his way, and he went back to the grasslands, and he said, look, to his countrymen, look what I have this magic dew from this forest kingdom, and we can use it. And they spread it all over their houses, and they spread it on the grasslands, and the grass got lush and green, and the fires were staved off. They couldn't really burn the lush grass. And so the people of the grassland thought this was a pretty great thing, and so they said, go back and get more dew. And he said, yes, yes, I will. And, but we can't just take their dew. Shouldn't we make some sort of negotiation? And so the people of the grasslands gave him what they had culled from the earth. They gave him gold. And so this man took back the gold to the kingdom of the forest. And the kingdom of the forest had never seen gold. Theirs was a kingdom of plants, and they don't mind the earth. They had never seen gold, and they thought, oh my goodness, look how bright and shiny this is. This is very lovely. I can't believe I've never seen such a thing. And so they took the gold, and they set out more buckets, and they collected more dew, and they gave it to the grasslands man, and back he went with more dew. And this went on back and forth. And the people of the grasslands gave him jewels made out of gold, and fine necklaces and rings and all sorts of gold things they had to get more dew. And the people in the forest were just bedazzled. You can work this golden stone into these elaborate things, and they wore them on their bodies, and they were walking around looking opulent and rich and chic, and they thought, oh my God, this is amazing! Here, have more dew, we have plenty. And they set out so many buckets that it captured all the dew and falling on the ground, and they gave it to the grasslands man, who by now had had a whole wagon train to collect the dew and bring the dew back to the grasslands, and the grasslands were positively lush with dew. And it got to the point where the grasslands people said, we need all the dew that you could possibly get us, because it's fire season coming up. We want even more dew. And the grasslands man went back to the forest and said, look, I've got this new thing for you. It's the gold, but now it has these diamonds in it. And the people in the forest were like, diamonds? We've never heard of diamonds. Oh my God, they're so sparkly. They're so shiny. We've never seen such things. Here, let's give it. Oh my God, where do we get dew? We've got all the dew that's dripping. And so then they went and they scraped all the dew off the leaves. They didn't even wait for it to drip. They just scraped off all the dew they could. And they said, more dew, give him more dew. Until all the dew had been given. And the fairies were exhausted. For the fairies made the dew. And the fairies were tired. And their magic for making dew was exhausted. And there was no more dew. And so the grasslandsman went back to his kingdom. And the grasslands used the last of the dew, and the grasslands were fine, and they didn't burn. But lightning struck. It struck, and as it had used to strike the grasslands and set them ablaze, this time it struck the forest. And there was no dew to make the leaves lush and moist. In fact, the fairies had left the forest to recuperate and recover their magic, and they had gone to a snowy mountain kingdom to rest in silence. And lightning struck the forest, and all the leaves were dry, and all the trees were dried out, and fire started for the first time in the forest, and the entire forest kingdom burned. And the people ran out of the forest and stood on the edge and watched their kingdom burn away until there was nothing left but ash and charred trunks and sticks. The forest people were bereft, and they went to the grasslands kingdom, and they said, is there anything you can do to help us? We've lost everything. We've lost our homes. All of our gold has melted into little clumps. We could trade it back to you for something. And the people of the grasslands were compassionate, and they went and they helped them build stone houses so that they wouldn't burn should lightning strike the forest or what was left of it again. But the people of the forest were used to living in a forest and making their food and making their livings off all the lush things that grew there, and they thought, we have nothing. These grasslands people have everything. Let's see if we can go and take their food from them and their things from them, because they got us into this after all. They took all our dew. And they rode out towards the grassland kingdom, and they were warlike and angry and out for blood. And the king of the forest went to the king of the grasslands, and he said, you owe us. You took all of our dew. You owe the riches and the food and the resources of your kingdom. And the king of the grasslands, while he certainly liked dew, he was a wise old man, and he said to the king of the forest, you and I are kings. We lead our people, and we are responsible for their lives and their well-being. Let us not make war. War will shed much blood. We will lose countless of our young people. It makes no sense to lose people in the prime of their life. Let's work something out. And so the grasslands people, they shared some of their food with the people of the forest, and the people of the forest shared some of the gold they had left over with the grasslands people. And they all got along somehow. Well, in the meantime, the fairies up in the mountain, they had given birth to new generations of fairies, for fairies breed very quickly. And some of the little sprites, the young ones who had not known the forest and had not known what had happened, still they had the forest in their blood, and They were a little bored with the snow, and so they went wandering out of the snow and the mountain, and they thought, what's beyond the snow? Let's go find out. And they wandered down to the place that had been the forest kingdom, and they found all these blackened, charred trunks and sticks, and they said to themselves, well, this is unpleasant. I don't like it at all. Let's pee on it. And all the little 5-year-old and 10-year-old fairies peed all over the blackened, charred forest kingdom. And wherever they peed, little green shoots sprang up, little clovers blossomed, vines grew, mosses grew, little saplings of the great old trees started to come back through the ash and spread their leaves to the sun. For you see, the dew had been made of fairy pea, and fairy pea is very nutritious for plants. It's the nitrogen. And so the children did this regularly, day after day. They would come back and they would pee on the charred old forest and make things come to life. And it came to pass that the old elder fairies found, where are the younger fairies? Where are they going? They'd gone every day. And they followed them, and they found them in the old charred remains of the forest. And they saw what they'd been doing, and they saw the green shoots. And they thought, oh my goodness, it's time for rebirth. Why, if we all let forth, we can regrow this forest. And that's what they did. All the fairies, young and old, came back to the charred old forest lands and peed their hearts out. And in just 1 month, the forest was as full and as lush as ever. And the people in the forest, who now lived in stone houses, had grown wiser, and they did not ask the fairies to make more dew than they could, but they set out the buckets and shared their dew with the grasslands people. And in return, the grasslands people shared food and gold jewelry with the forest people. And the forest people set out little offerings of rice and fruit for the fairies to eat, in gratitude for all they gave them. And the grasslands people, by this time, had pulled so many stones out of the ground of their kingdom to give to the forest people for their houses that were now fireproof, that they had cleared the land for farming. And out of the fairy dew that they had gotten, they grew cabbages. And they were renowned the world over for the high quality of their magic fairy cabbages. And the moral of the story is, when we cooperate, when we moderate, and when we respect the fairies, we can all get along and live well.